Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for More Survivalists talking about this horrible tragedy, massacre, whatever you want to describe it. 18-year-old decided that the best way to get some desperate last attempt of recognition or being seen by someone in the world was just go and slaughter a bunch of kids, apparently 19 children killed, 2 adult teachers as of right now. I don't know if that's going to be changing, but I want to talk about this. It's something that we've been seeing. I mean, just a couple of days ago, I did a video about this. I did a video about some of the things you can do in terms of an active shooter. Stuff that is the famous run, hide, fight. Could these kids fight? Of course not. These kids were completely helpless. Probably why they were targeted. But it already happened in Buffalo. There's things that from what the channel is about, from the survival and preparedness aspect of actively doing things, there's a bunch of things you can do in terms of, a lot of that is reflected in street survival skills. This book about how to barricade doors, stop bleeding, fight someone with a gun, how to, hold certain type of guns so as to jam them. There's a bunch of things that an adult could potentially do if you have that knowledge and you practice some of this. Even better, get classes with a qualified instructor that knows what he's doing and teaches these things. Have you ever held a gun and fired and saw how you can actually make it jam? You have to be extremely careful when doing these sort of things. And I would never even advise doing any of this without having not just any instructor, a qualified instructor, because it is very complex. Now, all of this, it's completely impossible for a child like this. And what I want to talk about in this video is the kind of stuff that I don't cover in my books. If you want to get my books, by all means, I would be more than happy. You have my links there below so as to get the books, get the knowledge. I want to talk here about something else, which is not covered in my books, and this is why the channel is intended to, complete the information that I want to put out there. Stuff that is, maybe more complex, maybe more takes more time to digest and sort out. Why is this happening? Why are these things happening? And you're not going to be getting this from the mainstream media. Forget about it. These guys are going to be doing their thing. You know what's going to be happening right now? What always happens? Nothing. Nothing's going to be happening. And the problem is complex. It's several points. I'll go through some of them. It's not going to be all, but I go through the main ones. You have a broken society. You have a loss of basic moral, religious values. It's not even about religion. It is both. Religiously, you shall not kill, don't steal, the things that now are mocked as religious nonsense. I'm not a particularly religious person, I'll be honest with you. I brought up as Catholic. Right now, very little. But I understand that that's what our society is based on. These ideas of right and wrong. No, you don't kill people. No, you don't steal. Why? Because that's kind of like the basic core of Christianity is based on that, right? Keep in mind, not all the world is like that. For people pointing at China and saying, China is cool. China is not communist. Well, it is, first of all, because it has a unique single communist party, so without a doubt it is communist. Just because they make your iPhones doesn't change that. But China is not based on the basic values of the West, the hated West right now. Because right now, one of the arguments I'm having with a lot of people is that, siding with Russia because the West is bad. Really, the West is bad. The Western civilization, which our society is built on, is bad. It's bad. The core of it is wrong. When I did the video also of the Great Leap Forward in China, 40 million people slaughtered. One of the main reasons why that happens is that they don't have those basic values that we have in the West. The idea of thou shalt not kill is not part of it. It's not so. Killing at the end of the day, even though some Chinese dude may have, this is terrible, but it's not going against their basic moral values. And that's just part of it. The way in which the society, specifically, these things can happen anywhere. But let's be honest, it's particularly happening a lot in the United States, and there's a reason for that, which is not pleasant to admit, and it's not guns. Of course it's not. Now, these guys are going to be blaming guns. These guys are going to be going, the guns, guns, guns. You know what? One of the reasons for this is how polarized and full of hate the society is, especially right now in the United States. You've seen BLM torch your entire country for, what, a couple of years? So the left is going to be doing what? Look at the far right, these Nazis. Nazis, I've heard that used as an excuse to slaughter a lot of people recently. Hey, they're just a bunch of Nazis, so it's okay to slaughter them. Well, the left does that as well. The Nazis, or the government, the U.S. government is doing right now, is saying that the white supremacists, the same as saying Nazis, let's call it what it is. Basically, it's the same tagging of using something as an excuse to focus your hate on a group of people. So the greatest threat that the United States is facing right now is white supremacists, nationalist white supremacists. The white guy in America, that's literally what they said was it's worse than ISIS right now, right? So on the left, they're pointing towards the right and saying it's the white guy and his guns, we have to ban guns. On the right, they're pointing at the left and saying, no, it's the loss of our basic values, our loss of our family values, our basic moral compass is broken. Well, at the same time, the guys on the right, many of them are pointing at Ukraine and saying, they're just a bunch of Nazis. A couple days ago, I posted a video about a man, a Ukrainian, that went out for groceries. When he came back home, his building had been bombed by Russia, killing his wife, 3-month baby, and mother-in-law. Basically, he lost his entire family. I posted about that, and someone in the comments said, that's from CNN, and there's violent music in the background. So you completely disregard the fact that this man was attacked by he had his entire family slaughtered because of a dictator in Russia, and you only focus on the fucking violin. And as I say fuck, I know that right now someone is gonna, he said fuck. The fact that you're offended more by fuck than by the slaughtering of people is exactly why this ends up happening. If you're not offended, if you're not, it's not offended, you know what it is really? It's a complete lack of empathy. So if you have lack of empathy for a man that lost his entire family for no reason whatsoever, then how can you possibly be surprised when a kid like this is showing complete lack of empathy himself? I mean, this is a spectrum, guys. So you have a polarized society where one is blaming the other all the time without really addressing the core problems, because at the end of the day, the core problem is something that the elite really does not want to address. And that's why you're not seeing this addressed in the mainstream media either. Because the breaking of traditional values, breaking of society that works perfectly for the elite, the loss of complete empathy and disregard for the suffering of millions of people. 2 million people displaced in Ukraine is insane. But lots of Americans from the right will tell you, they're all really a bunch of Nazis. So they were slaughtered, a bunch of Nazis, bunch of white supremacists. It's always the same thing. On another level, this is a complete failure of the government. A complete failure of the government, of the current administration and past administrations as well. This kid had been, this Salvador Ramos, one of those evil Latins that's invading our country and destroying our youth. Well, you know what? They come in all shapes and colors, man. You've seen white kids do the same thing. You'll see black kids doing the same thing. And it's all basically boils down to a breaking of society, loss of essential values, failure of the government, failure of the school. The kid was bullied his entire life, apparently barely any social skills whatsoever. He was not going to be graduating from school. Apparently he was doing horribly bad in school. So the school didn't notice that the kid was being bullied over, apparently his entire life, being bullied in school, doing horrible in class as well. There's some text messages here where he was tagging a girl, trying to get her attention, and the girl replies, "I barely know you, and you tag me in a picture with some gun, UGIG." those communication skills. A kid that has no perspective of future in his life. Now, if you have, if you're not completely broken as a person, and you objectively look at this and you say, 18-year-old, healthy young man living in Texas, he has his entire life ahead of him, right? He has the world as his oyster. He has his entire life ahead of him as a young, healthy adult. I see only potential and opportunity in his future. He sees nothing. Do you see how the society itself has broken, not only in terms of family, of basic moral values, in terms of what success actually is? Now, in the United States, particularly in the United States, the idea of success is being a billion, not even a millionaire anymore. Being a millionaire is for peasants. No, you have to be a damn billionaire, influencer with a, supermodel, a girlfriend, and that's the only idea. That's what this kid sees on Instagram. That's something he'll never get. The idea, the fantasy, that's actually being successful at life. Even itself, it's a joke. Most of those Instagrams are fake. Most of those people that are posting that, how many of those are actually Photoshop pictures? They even Photoshop their own bodies. Famous multi-millionaire people, Photoshopping their own bodies because it's not perfect enough for the standards of the rest of society, maybe for the standards of themselves. As time goes by and they age, they find that, now I'm 40, 50, 60. I'm no longer a hot 20-year-old girl, so my life is already shit because that's all I had. And that's the life that these kids see. That's the idea because are their parents involved there teaching them better? Of course not. Is there a school looking after them? Of course not. Now, is there a failure of the government? Yes, of course. This kid should have been receiving medical attention a long time ago. It's not so much a gun problem as it is a mental health problem. That's also true. That's also part of the equation here. Now, I've been told many times that lots of these Latinos, sneak into the United States illegally because they're going to be having the best medical care on the planet for free, which is bullshit. It's not true. You're not getting the best medical care on the planet. It's just laughable. And you're not getting it for free either. It's actually the opposite. One of the main problems is that this kid should have been receiving proper psychological care a long time ago, and that was not available for him. That was not there for him. That's the truth. That's why these things also keep on happening all the time. No, it's of course better just give a few pills and see if that helps any at all, which more often than not actually triggers the opposite result. How many of these kids that end up doing these mass shootings were already heavily medicated themselves? But, it works for the pharmaceuticals. Now, you know what doesn't work for the pharmaceuticals? Actually taking care of people. That doesn't work for the pharmaceuticals to have a policy of eating healthy and not being sick all the fucking time. Doesn't work for the pharmaceuticals and the big elite to have kids like this. This is the Joker. If you haven't seen the Joker movie, you really should. It is, yeah, sure, it's a movie and it's based on a comic, but one of the things that got to people a lot is it's actually correct. When you have a broken person loose in society, you shouldn't be surprised that they end up doing horrible things. Now, if this kid had received help when it was needed, he wouldn't have done this. I cannot tell exactly what was going on, but I can tell you that much. If this kid had received help, he would have been treated properly. Maybe he needed to be institutionalized. Maybe he needed to spend some time, in an institution that was helping him. And if it was decided that he was just not fit for living in society anymore because he was a danger to himself and others, maybe that's where he should have stayed. But that's not the policy of the U.S. government. No, of course not. The policy of the U.S. government is blaming guns right now. because it's a bunch of commies that are in office, and that's what works for them. And maybe they'll pass something, maybe they won't. We'll see what happens. But what's not gonna be happening? Addressing the real causes of this tragedy. I can bet you that's not going to be changing, because it's hard, because it goes against the narrative, because it goes against the interests of the elites. So it's not going to be changing. At least be aware of all of this that I'm saying here, and make the necessary adjustments. Look after your kids properly. Be there for them. Don't think that it's all about making money. The stay-at-home mom that is so ridiculed these days. You're not working. Do you have any idea? I have 3 kids. Do you have any idea how much work it is to, look after 3 kids properly? Not like a bunch of, selfish assholes that only think about getting out of the house as soon as possible, with any excuse that may even be work. I have to work this weekend. So any excuse not to be there, because it's hard, because talking with little kids is not always fun. Sometimes it's kind of boring for an adult to play along with kids every day, one day after the other. It's much more for convenience. I have to work. I'm not going to be home anymore. Who's going to be looking after this kid? No one. The cell phone that this kid is actually holding up, that's what's looking after this kid. A fucking cell phone is looking after that kid. As he was being bullied, as he was being ostracized from society, as he was going through a clear mental problem of his own. That's what he had. And a last desperate attempt for attention, so as to be recognized in the world, was doing what he did. Guys, it's going to be all for now. See you in the next video. Take care.